First, music is almost like a universal love language. It's something that brings all of us together.
Over the years, Maine's music scene has evolved and changed with the times, and now that musical journey is on display at the Maine Historical Society.
When you think about country music stars from Maine, the one who most likely comes to mind is Dick Curless.
It's a stretch of road up northern Maine that's never, ever seen a smile.
But there are plenty of other performers who wrote their own chapters in Maine music, and their stories are now on display here at the Maine Historical Society. Tilly Lasky is the exhibit's curator.
I'm really excited for people to be able to come in and to see how diverse music in Maine is, and I think that they'll be really surprised of what they find here.
This is cool.
Take, for instance, this section, with nods given to country music performers Hal Lone Pine, Betty Cody, and the original Radio Cowboys, all of whom were well known in their day.
They had broadcasts that were out of Bangor, Lewiston, Portland, and they actually had the first coast-to-coast radio broadcast in the nation before even the Grand Ole Opry.
And I'm glad that I've heard the yodeling bird singing,
That Appalachian sound kind of migrated up the Appalachian Mountains, right? People in Maine really gravitated to the sound, and it really was kind of based in those songs from the British Isles and Franco songs that had a very similar sound. And so country music just kind of layered in upon that. And so I think that's why it really took off in Maine the way it did.
From country music to indigenous sounds, to sea shanties, Maine's unique landscape provides a plethora of melodies.
It creates these pockets of really interesting cultures as well as music. And so the things that people are performing near the ocean might be different than what's being performed, up in the woods or in the mountains. And so to think about music in particular in that way, like how the soundscape changes with the landscape.
The collection showcases instruments, like this vintage upright grand piano.
It is just one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I've never seen a piano with such a detail on the inside. Not everybody can put a grand piano in their house. Right. And so this was an opportunity to still get the really great sound in a smaller piano.
And these Civil War era drums, some of which had been carried into battle.
Most marching bands today have their roots in these muster and Civil War units. The musicians came home from the war and they still wanted to play music kind of in that marching way. And so you see a lot of cultural bands like Penobscot Nation Band, the Caledonian Band, which were Scottish women who were marching band, and then the school bands as well.
And did you know Farmington had its own diva?
Lillian Nordica was born in Farmington, and she became an international opera star and mostly performed overseas, also at the Metropolitan in New York. So she was just incredibly famous.
That humanity is on full display here.
We tried to get a real jukebox and we couldn't quite make that work. So we had this idea of, we'll use one of our touch screens and make it look like a jukebox. So basically, people can choose what kind of music that they want to listen to, and then you just hit it.
So Lenny Bro, Denny Bro, Betty Cody, Dick Curless. All kinds of people. Who's this guy? There you go. There's some country.
So that's Johnny Highland, and he was just inducted into the Maine Country Music Hall of Fame last year.
Paying homage to those artists who have paved the way for others in the great state of Maine and beyond.
History is today, right? Anything that happened a minute ago is history. And so it's important to us to show that there are deep traditions here in Maine that inform what's happening today. And it's also important to recognize that we don't have all of the stories here. We don't hold all of those stories. But by collaborating with people in the communities, there's a platform for them to tell their own stories in their own words.
It's a really cool exhibit.
I could get lost in that jukebox
Yes.
for a long time, I suspect.
Yes, so many artists represented. And I think what's also really important, something Tilly mentioned, is that Wabanaki Nation, their music is represented in this exhibit. And it's music that dates back centuries, but it still has a place in today's world. And I think that's also part of the message they're trying to send, is that it all kind of transcends through time, keeps us together. The Music in Maine exhibit is open to the public in person and virtually through the end of the year. You can learn more about it on our website and app.